Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here at New Creation Church. We're located in Mesa at Country Club in the 60. We're about ready to start our worship service. Today I'm going to go into a part of what was the biggest mistake that King David made. And I want to tie this into our lives and look at different angles and then circle around his biggest mistake. So I hope you join us, or stay with us, I should say. But thank you for being here and enjoy today's service. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here in the house of the Lord. It's good to see all of you as we gradually come back to coming to the house of the Lord, but at the same time, things will never be the same, but it doesn't mean it can't be better. Just because it's changed doesn't mean it can't be better. And we strive and we desire to do better in the sense of our service unto the Lord, doing the right things in our life, and following the ways of the Lord. Amen. Like I said, it's good to have you today, those of you joining us online. We are going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 11 and just one verse there. 2 Samuel 11 and 1. And it came to pass after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him. So he sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel. And they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem. Before I go into that, I want to kind of explain a couple things, and maybe you could call it a debriefing. But the messages that I bring across here in service, Pastor's Corner, and our daily show, Joy Comes in the Morning, I bring messages that are applicable to you. I bring messages that are everyday applicable to you. And some people will call it self-help, self-improvement. They'll call it being happy. That's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at when you're going through something in your life, that is your reality. It may not be the tribulation, but it's your tribulation. Brother Willie, when you were in the hospital with COVID, you were in a tribulation. It wasn't the tribulation, but was he not in a tribulation? Didn't he need tools to fight through in that tribulation? When you are struggling with relationships, when you are struggling financially, when you're struggling with a disease, is it not a tribulation? The reason I say that is because it'll come back to me that people will bring to my attention that I don't talk about the tribulation. But when you're going through something, you don't care what's happening on the other side of the world. Your reality is your reality. Your pain is your pain. And me talking about some other war that's going on somewhere, is that going to help you to be a better husband? Is it going to help you to be a better mother? Do you see? And I'm going somewhere with this. Because right now there's a divide in the churches of a belief. There is one belief, and I want you to hold out when I give these two sides. What I mean hold out, don't say one's right or wrong. I just want you to hear me. There's a divide. There's one belief system that we're going to go into a great revival. And that 1 billion souls are going to come to the Lord. And would that be a great thing? Yes. But that's some people are believing that. And then there's others believing the rapture is going to happen. Even yesterday, there was numerous preachers that were saying the rapture was going to happen yesterday. Did I tell you about that? No, I didn't. I didn't tell you, right? So why am I telling you now after the fact? Because I'm using it as an example. And there's a divide. Some are believing that we're going into a great revival. Some are believing the rapture is going to happen. There's numerous pastors that said the rapture is going to happen in June 2021. I can explain some of it. I won't go into great depth. It'll take hours to go and explain how they come up with these dates. And yes, you could say no man knows the days and the hour. We can argue about that. Yes, but my point is, I didn't even reference it to you. And I'm going to explain why later in the message. But I just want to, again, it's a debriefing. The reason, it's not because I'm searching, I'm trying to figure it out, because I'm not. But because, again, of our shows, I find myself on YouTube a lot. And YouTube, it sends you things that they think you might be interested in. And it's been sending me these rapture videos, and I'll kind of see the tags, and I'll hit it, and sometimes I'll watch for a while. Sometimes I'll just move on, but it's more out of curiosity. And I hear these preachers preaching, and if you gave them a lie detector test, no, they would pass because it's their truth. It's not the truth, it's their truth. But when I was watching this, it came across how so many so-called, and I'm doing quotations, which I don't do much, so many so-called prophets misprophesied this past year. And it came across. There's a new thing that they're asking preachers to sign up for, to sign up that you will put what you prophesy up against the 7 scriptural challenges to a prophecy. And some of them will not sign it. I'm not going to go down the 7 challenges, but one is try the Spirit. One, does it align with the Word? All these different things. What is the fruit? And then they put this one in there. And this one really caught me, but I want you to hear it. Nobody knew COVID was coming. Not one prophet knew. Can someone help me there? You know why? Because this house knew. Now, hear me, and I need you to follow me with this. Those of you that were present when we were told that this was coming, and many of you were present when this happened over a decade ago, that when we heard it, not only did we hear it, we got instructions that all of you heard the instructions because we've been following the instructions annually since. But let me explain this, Minister Such. Think about this. When the Lord told us that COVID was coming, if he would have said, COVID-19 is coming, would we have understood that? It would have been Mandarin to us, right? It would have been a foreign language. We would not understand the term COVID-19. Did the Lord know COVID-19? Yes. Yes, he did. He knew COVID-19, but he knew that our intellect wouldn't understand what that meant. So the way he explained it to us wasn't verbatim COVID-19, but that there was going to come a virus that was going to come out and hit society. And he told us to fast and prep our bodies, right? And we've been doing this annually ever since. We've been going through and getting ready. Why am I sharing this? Because when I heard, nobody knew. If I was you, I would say, I want to be in that house. Are you catching me? You have all these prophets missing the mark and not even having a clue on something big, but yet you knew. Now, did I say I knew? Did I say all of you know how it went. Did I prophesy it? No. Did I put my name on it? I was one of you hearing it with you. Just like the Bible says, it'll be one of your brothers like you. I'm not going to get in that teaching. But what I'm saying is, that's a house I want to be in. Are we the biggest? Are we the best? Are we the most? Are we the highest? Are we the greatest? Do we have the most money? Do we have the most members? And I'm not even big on that members, but I'm just saying what people would call fruit. The Bible doesn't call any of those things fruit anyways. Man calls that fruit. But it touched my heart when they admitted that none of these so-called prophets knew. But you knew. Does that make us great? No, but it does show that God has favor on you. So it's not only did he tell us as a form of gossip, and it wasn't, of course, I'm using that, as a form of prepping. So why didn't he tell us 12 months? Because 12 months wouldn't have been enough time. And I remember the Lord spoke to me in that transition, and he said, who has transformed your body? Meaning me physically. And I said, you have, Lord. Because you have taken me down this path of stripping my body physically and rebuilding it in preparation of what was to come. Now, was this applicable? Was this important? Did this matter? Yes, to all of that. That whole time, did I talk to you? Did I ever break down the 4 horsemen of the book of Revelation to you? Did I? No. But did we talk about the F word? Yes, we use the F word quite a bit. And if you don't know what the F word is fasting. Why? Because the fasting prepped us. And the rebuilding prepped us. And I can get into that, but I'm just using that as an example. So here we are. People are arguing, is the good rapture going to happen right now, or are we going into great revival? Me? I might as well go get a breakfast burrito and go do something else. Because I'm not joining in on the argument. You follow me? Why? Because there's bigger fish to fry than to argue about these things. And this is what will come across to me. Well, shouldn't you get people ready? All of you know where I stand on this. You shouldn't be looking for one day only to be ready. And what I mean, that one day of the rapture. You should just live your life always being ready. Why? And I'm going to give you a different answer. Why? Not that you get left behind. Not that you don't go to heaven. You should be ready because it's the best life to live anyways. It's the best life to live regardless of the rewards. Or in reverse, regardless of the consequences. You should just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do the right thing. You should just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do the right thing, regardless of benefits or consequences. Can we call it a carrot? Do the right thing. Instead of just saying, I should do the right thing because I need to do the right thing. I should love my neighbor just not because I just want to go to heaven. I should love my neighbor because my neighbor needs my love. Okay, now I'm preaching. You should just do the right thing. And all of you know the message in this house. It's not based out of fear. Because all of that is fear-based. And if you live on fear, then your fuel is fear. Then you have the residual of fear, which is jealousy, envy, covetousness, hate. All that it comes from fear. I don't have time to break it down. But I think it's a beautiful thing that you were enlightened. Now, how many people would listen to you? And if you were to tell them. And I had people tell me it wasn't going to happen. Some people still don't believe it has happened. But it did happen. And argue it and fight it. But I'm not the one to argue with about it. It's just man misses the mark, but God doesn't miss the mark. So as people argue or go over this, and I'm going to tell you a side note why. Because people would rather talk about these other things than talk about stuff that I call applicable, because there's no accountability if we're going to talk about other stuff. If we talk about the 4 horsemen of the book of Revelation, it doesn't put anything on you. Or if we talk about the devil, then we're not going to go and talk about things in your life. Do you see that? That's why people like preachings that don't come down and apply to our lives, because then we don't have to address things. We don't have to be accountable. We don't have to take ownership. So that's why people like that. You know how you get a shout in church? Say the devil's a liar. Brother Mario already knew where I was going. You want to get a shout in the church? The devil's a liar. There you go. Yeah, right? Where's Brother Nash? Get back up here. Am I right? How come we don't shout when we say, love your neighbor? You could hear the church mouse running down the street. Think about it. You step into church and you say, the devil's a liar. Preach it, pastor. Now you're preaching. Love your neighbor. I don't like you anymore. Do you see the difference? Why? Because we could talk about the devil and it doesn't bring anything on us. But when we talk about loving our neighbor, we got to look at self. Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Forgive me, Lord, my trespasses as I forgive those who trespass against me. Forgive me my trespasses, Lord, as I forgive those who trespass against me. What's more important, this one or this one? They're equally as important. Your forgiveness is important, but you forgiving is just as important. So am I saying this to qualify, to defend, to set that we're something? No. I'm just saying, look at behind us what God has done and shown. And as people have said, you're missing the mark. If I would have said we would be here in 2021, 20 years ago, I would have been a heretic. And I could remember, and I'm going to explain quickly why people are putting dates short. The parable of the fig tree. When you see it blossom, know that it is nigh, and this generation shall not pass. Has anyone ever heard that? All of you have heard it. When did it start the clock in the interpretation of eschatologists? 1948, when Israel became a nation. So, Israel became a nation in 1948. This generation shall not pass. What many preachers believed is a generation was 40 years, so we would not get past 1988, because that would have been 40 years. Then it became 50 years, so we wouldn't get past 1998. Then it became 60 years. Well, prior to that, there was Y2K, which we weren't going to get past Y2K. Then it became 2008, right? Then it became 2018. Are we at 2028? No, here's where the math goes. So here's how it's going. Now a generation is 80 years. That's what the theologians are saying. Okay. So are we at 19 or 2028, I should say? Are we there? No. But if you take 48 to 28, you have 80 years. And then you take off 7 years for the tribulation. Where does that bring you? 2021. So that's why they're all saying this is the year. Because 80 years is a generation. And how do they come up with 80 years now? It was 40 when I was a young man. Now it's 80 because the Bible says that your life is given 70 years. If you're strong, you get 80. Right? So do you see the math? So what happens if we get past 2028? Well, then a generation will be 90. Then it'll be 100. And then we can look at it this way. Anyone that was born on 1948 or prior, as long as one person is still alive, the generation is still here. So somebody can live 120 years, right? Not usually, but they could. Somebody could easily live 110 years, 115. I'm not going to sweat it. Because if I just do the right thing, I don't have to worry about any of that. So where does this tie in with our scripture? When kings go forth to battle, and King David, what did he do? He tarried. It was the biggest mistake that he ever made in his life. Of course, we know his other mistakes, but one other mistake we don't hear about is he wanted the Ark of the Covenant. You remember King David wanted it? And he said, we're bringing it. We're going to bring it back. And he should have known better because the Bible says that when you have a king, he should have a copy of the Torah. Why? So he could read it and know what to do. And if he would have looked at it, he would have known you don't put the ark on a cart. But he had a new way of doing it. Right? He had a new way. So his new way was, let's put it on a cart. That sounds smart, right? Isn't that how man is? I'm going to reinvent the wheel. That's how he went with the wheel. But that wasn't how it was meant to be carried. And what happened? A man lost his life. Because the cart moved, the ark moved, and he put his hand on the ark, and he died. So King David cost this man his life. So he made a mistake there. He made a mistake with Bathsheba, and then he made a mistake with Uriah, right? But see, the biggest mistake he made when it was time to go to war. I'm pausing here because instead of arguing, stay with me, please. Instead of arguing about tomato, and potato, we should just have our hands to the sword. We should have our hands on the plow. We should be doing that which we're called to do. That was a little golf clappish to me there. What is your calling? You all have a calling, every single one of you. What is your gift? What is your talent? Well, I'm not a preacher. Well, you don't have to be a preacher. You have a calling. And whatever that calling is, it needs to go out into the battlefield. Because if you tarry at Jerusalem, you're going to get yourself in trouble. Because you're going to have what I call freelance time. See, especially men, and this is what King David did. He wanted to freelance. He didn't want to punch the clock. Have you ever heard a man say that? Yes, I don't want to. They won't say it this way, but that's what they mean. I don't want to punch a clock. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do. There's plenty of things in your life you don't want to do. But not doing them could get you in trouble. And I'm big on following systems and schedules. I'm big on following steps. Because the opposite of it is freelancing like King David did. You ever see a young man doing good, staying on track, going to work, going to school, studying, helping around the church? Then all of a sudden, he's not going to school anymore. All of a sudden, he's not working anymore. And what else happens? He stops helping around the church. Next thing you know, he's out running the streets. And before you know it, he's in trouble. Have you ever heard this story? You have. So how come when that young man was going to school and going to work and how he was able to help around the church? But when all of a sudden he's not going to school anymore, he's not going to work, he can't help anybody do anything because all he's doing is freelancing and lost any motivation to do anything with anybody other than find trouble, other than finding selfish satisfaction. Have you ever heard this? If you want something done, ask somebody that is busy. You should have heard this by now. If you want to get something done, find somebody who has a lot to do already and ask that person. It doesn't make sense, does it? Follow me. Ask somebody that doesn't have much to do something and watch it not get done. But ask the guy that works 60 hours a week, does the other side work, shows up at everything, and ask him to do something and watch what happens. You know why? Because they're engaged. You know why? Because they're on the battlefield. See, you ask the guy that's doing nothing to do something, he can't engage. He's paralyzed because he's not in the battle. There's so many things that we can do for the kingdom. You have a gift, a talent that is different than everyone else, and you could do it better than everybody else. But if you're not on the battlefield, it won't happen. I'm going to blow your mind right now. Stay with me as I go philosophical on you. The more church you miss, the more church you'll miss. The more church you miss, the more you'll miss church. You'll miss it more. Because once you stop coming and you start missing, it's easier to keep missing. So one Sunday turns to 2 Sundays, turns to 2 months, and for some people it can turn into years. And it's just like, tomorrow I'm going to go back. Next week. Next week comes, you know what, I got to go to Walmart. I got laundry to do. I'll go next week. Do you know that there's some people, it's not because they're physically unable, okay, not health-wise, but they cannot walk through the doors now because they missed so much church. They can't even get themselves, it's like being paralyzed. They can't do it. And maybe you don't understand this. Maybe you do. But it's like you ever have like so many things to do in your life that you got to get done and you don't know where to start. It's like, where do I start? I got to clean this garage. I got to organize it. And you look at it, you just don't know what to do. I got to do the laundry. The kitchen needs to be clean. The trash needs to be thrown out. The backyard needs to be clean. My car's a mess. I need to get that washed. Oh, I have this project. I got to turn in this paper. I have about 5 emails I need to return. In fact, I got some texts I forgot to respond to. And then you start watching a movie. And I'll watch it a little while and I'll get to it. Next thing you know, the credits are coming down. The movie's over. You're on Netflix, season 1, episode 3. I'm going to get to my laundry. Now you're on episode 10. But now you get creative. You get on Facebook. Must watch. You got to see this. Now you're into season 2. None of you know what that's like, right? And you're still in your sweats or your pajamas or your basketball shorts, right? Backyard's still dirty, laundry still piled up, kitchen's still dirty, the car's a mess, haven't got to the emails, haven't done my paper that I need to turn in. Do you see how that works? It's like, I'm going to do it. Have you ever felt like that? Thank you, a couple of you. Some people numb themselves so they don't even have to be reminded that all those responsibilities are there. What do we call it? Adulting. We have to adult, right? What is adulting? Especially men here. What is adulting? I'm going to tell you what adulting is. It's getting our backside. Can I say backside, Minister Such? He's our religious, consultant, yes, and corrects that. So he says we can say backside. We need to get our backside, I'm going to use another one, our tails. We need to get our tails onto the battlefield. Do you remember? They're going to war, and the Lord's like, the army's too big. He says, it needs to get dwindled down. Dwindled down, dwindled down. Why? It had to get to a number where there was the whole team was willing to be in unison. And then the instructions, they took a candle and they put it in a lamp thing. They lit the candle was inside there, and then they had like horns, and it was like, okay, all at once we're going to break it, boom, the candles are going to shine, and we're going to all blow the horns. And it's going to seem like a whole army, and it was an army. And then the other army ate itself up. But it wouldn't have worked if one person only did it or two people. They all had to do it. And the instruction was, do as I do. Which is a big difference as do as I say. See, we could be big on do as I say. Armchair pastors, do as I say. No. See, that's where David went wrong. When he told them what to do, but he didn't do it. He told them to do fasting, but he wasn't fasting. He told them to pray, but he wasn't praying. He told them to pick up trash around the church, and he wasn't picking up trash around the church. Oh, they didn't have a church. They didn't have trash. No, but you see what I'm saying, though? There's a big difference if men, I'm talking to you. If I'm asking you to do something that I won't do. Am I unwilling to do the tasks? Do I only tell you what to do, but I won't do it? That's not how it works, right? The only thing is this. What is my talent, my time best for? Is it best to pick up trash, which I will do? Or is it giving devotionals every week, speaking, talking, counseling? Which one's better? Which one's better for me to do? Do you see this? But will I do it? But at the same time, I'm not going to beg anyone. When it's time to go to battle, if we're not on the battlefield, we're going to freelance and we're going to get ourselves in trouble. That's why they say you want something done, find somebody who's busy. Watch it. Ask somebody that doesn't do anything and has nothing going on to do something for you. And what they will have is a line of excuses. I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that, and they're on season 3 now of Netflix. Right? I don't have time. Do you think it happens? People waste a lot of time. Maybe it's not Netflix. Maybe it's video games. Maybe it's something else. But that's why we fast. Because fasting breaks that chain. It breaks it. If we never fast, we won't break that chain. It'll hold us down. Whatever that is, whatever your flavor is, that flavor that you have, that flavor that I have, it'll grab onto my ankle, it'll grab onto your ankle. The only way you break it is through prayer and fasting. I know people will argue against it that you don't earn your salvation. I'm not saying you earn your salvation. What I'm saying is the lazier we are, the lazier we will get. Laziness doesn't have an end. You can just get lazy and lazier and lazier. But you engage, you put your hands to the plow, you put your hands to the sword. And if King David was on the battlefield, he would have never walked that path that he ended up taking. The Bible specifically tells us While the men went, it says all of Israel. What I picture is he was home, and probably the young, really young men were there too, and all the women. And there he was, freelancing. Because it says, when the kings go forth to battle. And what did King David do? He sent Joab. And what did Joab do? He won the war. Right? But King David was kicking it. He was freelancing. We make serving the Lord as easy as we can, it becomes hard. If we make serving the Lord as easy as we can, it becomes hard to serve the Lord. Now, I'm not saying serving the Lord is hard. What I'm saying is go at it hard. Go at it hard. Now, pace yourself. Pace yourself. Find your rhythm. Find your pace. Find your schedule and what works for you. But freelancing is not your answer. So what about the rapture? Well, if you're on the battlefield, you got nothing to worry about. What about the tribulation? Well, if you're doing what you're supposed to, you don't have to worry about it. Well, what if the great revival happens? It'll be fine too, right? Will you take that one? Which one is it? I look at it this way. The rapture happens today. Good. Good in the sense that, let's go. Does that come off wrong? Yeah, I've been told I'm going to miss the rapture. I'm glad man doesn't decide. Uh, are you arrogant about it? No. But think about this. Do you think God's going to tell you that the COVID's going to happen and to prepare and then leave you behind after all that? Think about that. If he knows the number of hairs on your head and he's going to be that specific with us that we're going to get left behind after all that, doesn't that sound kind of contradictory? When God is so specific with this tribe, would it make any sense for him to leave us out? I don't think so. He knows my name. When I was in my mother's womb, he knew me. One time, the Lord woke me up in the middle of the night, and he spoke to me. And he said, I designed you, I made you a certain way that you could lead. And this is how he worded it. Because the Lord doesn't speak by pigment of skin, okay? He said, you would lead people from many nations. Now, that's not our language. But again, what was he saying? He was saying our congregation would be diversified. That's what he was saying. because we are crazy diversified. Where men could not understand it, because the most segregated place there is Sunday morning at church. And this last year proved it even more. I had a gentleman, we had an in-depth conversation about that. And he was telling me how it broke his heart, the divide that came through the church and churches. I said, you know what we did? We stayed out of the fight. It wasn't our fight. I said, we never even went there. I said, why are we going there now? I'm not going there now. I'm saying that, how many of you remember me telling you this? We have bigger fish to fry. Don't even bring me in there. See this right here? Do you know how many messages will come from people that aren't from our church telling me what side to be on? Do you think it happens? People I wouldn't even know who they are sending me messages on what I'm supposed to believe politically. Right? Again, where I should stand. And I know that some people don't like it about me. But again, there's no way you could lead a diversified church and then be a segregated person. Yeah, you cannot lead a diversified church, but you yourself segregate people. I wasn't trained by man not to look at people's pigment of their skin. I was trained by God. But my son, I think he's helping with the children. I heard him the other day. He was telling somebody, and I was sitting, I wasn't in the conversation. He was telling them, my parents never spoke about race. Never. It was never brought up. We were never told anything about it. It was never an issue. I never understood it was an issue, he says, until I was 16, 17, 18 years old. He said, I didn't even know. Why? Because to me, it's not an issue. Well, don't you stand for justice? Yes. What better way to stand for justice than to be all inclusive? But hear me, whatever side you're on. What I mean by that, as the Lord said, nation, whatever nation that you come from. You think my 23, what is it called? 23andMe. Do you think it comes back mine and it's one nation? My 23andMe is a bunch of nations. And one of them, I'm 16% indigenous. That's one of the nations. It's not the only one, but it's many nations that's in my DNA. But I don't fit the eye of what people would think. I could tell you, I could break it down for you, but I won't. But the results is all of you. What I mean by that, look at these seats, the color of the fabrics. You see that? That's you, the coat of many colors. It's the coat. It's the coat. It's the coat of many colors. Do you see how God was doing something and prepping you? And Sister Lexi, that we can open our arms. We can open the doors. And where man puts a divide, I'm not getting into it. And the church is divided. What does the enemy want to do? He wants to divide. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the trick. Let's get on the battlefield. I look at it this way. If man has an issue with who you are, let it be their issue. It's not your issue. You own who you are. You own who you are. And that's why I look and I say, God loves me for me. And I get it. I get it. I won't fit with a lot of people, and that's okay. I'm okay with it. In fact, I'd rather know early than late on that. I'd rather know up front, we don't accept you. Right? But there's not one of you. There's every single one of us. Every one of us has experienced some form of being rejected. But that is not what's important in the sense of you. What's important, yes, go ahead and come on up. I know I'm losing people because I'm drilling deep. It's uncomfortable for some, I get it. But see, what is that uncomfortableness? It's because that's what's been put into us. I don't try and be one thing or another. I'm just me. I just live. Somebody once said, there's no way he could be the man he portrays himself to be. I said, I'm not even trying to portray myself to be anything. I'm just me. Who is that? Who God has made me to be. Who's God made me to be. But I'm saying that because as this divide has happened in the churches, I thank God that you're still here. That we're still here. And our diversity is still intact. And that instead of church being the most segregated place that you know in this house, it's the least segregated place. And say, well, I know there's somewhere that the people are just people. And not throw the term brother and sister around loosely, right? Was it Brother Micaiah, Brother Matthew? As they say, we're family. We're family. That's what we are. We're family. So, stay on the battlefield. Put your hands to the plow. And what is, as God said, many nations? What does the Bible say in the book of Revelation that's going to be in heaven? It says many nations. It doesn't, tribes and tongues, right? It says many nations, many tongues. What does that mean? The nations that we all come from and the languages that are spoken, right? What it means is heaven is gonna look like this. And I think it's a beautiful thing. But I'm clarifying how he said nations to me. And the nations is the way it's worded in the word. It's worded in the word that way. See, we word it differently, but God words it another way because that's what it is. And when we all get to heaven, some of you may be happy about this one. We're going to have new bodies anyways. And how are we going to know each other? Because we're going to know each other's spirit and each other's hearts.